This is my crowd of 5 people. My name is Richard Mann, and this is the informative speech, and my topic is how to do well in college. Imagine yourself with a test tomorrow that you are in no way prepared for. You decide to spend all night in the library as you prepare and hope that you can do well for the test on the coming day. As you study, you begin to think about what you could have done in the past to prevent this from happening in the future, because you don't want to do this the entire semester and you want to do well in school. The first thing that I would like to talk to you about is when to begin studying. In his journal, H.B. Charles Jr. says that you should begin each week by marking out the hours that you will study each day. And this is something that is very important to college students because they do not have balanced schedules. And that's the first thing that I would like to talk to you about. Balancing your schedule is something that can help all college students because often, more than not, they tend to waste time between classes, eating, working out, on the way home. They waste time. And if you have a structured schedule, you won't waste time and you will maximize the hours given to you in one day. The second thing I would like to talk about is keeping up your work. This is very important because if you have a test the next day as well as a written assignment due, obviously you might choose the written assignment to do first, and this will prevent you and take away hours of study that you have. And this could prevent you from doing well, and you might have to end up pulling an all-nighter in the library. The next thing I'd like to discuss is where to study. The most important thing is to find a place with no distractions. Your cell phone should not be next to you. There shouldn't be people talking in the background. A place where you can focus. That's the main point, is anywhere you can focus. All students are different. You might be able to focus in a coffee shop or in the silent section of the library or maybe even outside next to a pond or a tree. Anywhere that you can keep your focus is very important. And the first place that many college students often go to study is at home or maybe their dorm or their apartment. And the problem with this is that they may have a roommate who's very annoying, who tends to watch TV or Netflix or listen to music very loudly when you have to study, and they might not take your warning of, hey, I have a test, and they just don't care. So where else might you go? The library at Clemson, the Cooper Library, which has 5 floors dedicated to study. The first floor is the silent floor and is the quietest of all. People are down there mostly for reading, not for typing. If you cough or sneeze or anything, you might be given a dirty look. People are just like quiet down there. The second floor is filled with a lot of people and is a little bit louder, but still somewhere where you can ultimately concentrate. It's down there, and people tend to be loud, maybe type of paper, study in a group. The third floor, similar to the second floor, it has quiet zones, people collaborative working. Another place that's good for study that has quiet zones and loud zones. The fourth floor is a little bit louder than the rest. This is the entrance floor, and it has more computers and stuff that maybe aren't best for study, but for completing work ultimately, which is another goal for students. The fifth floor, similar to the fourth, largely collaborative zone. A lot of students there. It may be loud, you may lose focus. The sixth floor, similar to the fifth, loud, you may lose focus, and you may want to use the first or second floor. And this is something that can be effective to all college students, is using this library at Clemson. All colleges have a library that could be beneficial to all students. Ultimately, the choice is up to students where they would like to study. It's ultimately somewhere where you won't lose focus and be able to concentrate on your studies. The last thing that I would like to mention are some useful study strategies that many students maybe don't know about or might find useful in the future. Some things that students struggle about is papers. In his book, Ronald W. Fry says that you should spend half the time period of your paper doing research and the other half for writing. This doesn't mean spending half a day, the day before it's due, doing research and then the other half writing. While you might be able to pull it off, it's still not useful and it's still not the best, and you may not get an A. While you still will probably pass your paper, it's ultimately not recommended. And many college students do it, but you should not. The other is just other studying subjects, whether it be a test, a quiz, any homework that you have to do. And College Melinda says that you should zero in on a weak subject. And while this might seem obvious, some students might spend a lot of time studying a subject where they know they could get a B, but they want an A, and completely ignore a subject where they could get a D instead of a B. And this is a big problem because students don't know how to correctly study and spend their time. And reading course material is also very important, and this is something that students tend to ignore, whether it be due to a long chapter or something that you don't have time for. If you had budgeted your schedule, you had read it in the upcoming weeks leading up to the class, you knew, or the test, that you knew it was coming up, and you wouldn't have to read it the night before. And reading course material can be hard because some students have trouble identifying what is important and what is not. And this is something that can be fixed by highlighting, which many students do incorrectly. And here I have an example of incorrect highlighting. You see this entire page is highlighted, and you can't find the key words and the main subject points of the topic. And so you think, why would you highlight this? You would just reread the entire page again. And here I have an example of correctly highlighted text. You see not the entire text is highlighted. While this might not be the main points, it's just a book. In a text, you would highlight the main subjects, the point of view of a paragraph, and ultimately be able to identify it without having to go back and reread the entire page. And something else that some students might find useful is a study group, but this should ultimately not be used as a night before the test, because study groups often tend to get off track and may lose focus, and you don't want to rely on that fully as your review topic, because if your study group loses focus and you are completely relying on them to teach you the course material, you'll be out of luck completely for the test the next day. And then the last thing that I'd like to talk about is a review session from your teacher or perhaps an SI leader. This is something that can be very useful because the SI leader or the teacher, if it's done by the teacher, then they have the material that they recommend strongly for the test because it's coming straight from them who made the test. If it's coming from an SI leader, they heard it exactly from the teacher and they're presenting it to you as a class for you to learn. And they know exactly what you need to know for the test, and it's best for them. While ultimately you might be able to rely on them for the test, it is not completely recommended, but as the day before, this might be more useful than a study group who tend to get off track rather than someone who has got their notes directly from the teacher. And I'd like to reiterate the main things that I've covered today. The three main aspects that I believe can lead to your success or demise for studying for college: completing your schedule, deciding where to study, and study tips for your test or quiz upcoming. I hope you enjoyed my speech, and I hope that you don't end up spending all night in a library pulling an all-nighter because you didn't prepare correctly for your test.